Good evening, everyone. Today I'll be looking at record breaking and unprecedented compound and hot dry summers in Europe under different emission scenarios. So, quickly, we'll be looking at the introduction and choice of topic, the methodology, the results, and as well as the conclusion. As we all know, there is global warming, and as such, one of the effects is that there has been a very high reoccurrence of events like heat waves, droughts, and floods. Now, going by the topic compound hot and dry event, what do we mean? We mean when two events, specifically heat waves and droughts, happen at the same time or in quick succession. The impact of when these two events, droughts and heat wave happen at the same time, is far greater than when these individual events happen on their own. One of the effects is that we have reduced livestock, reduced water supplies, hydropower production. The physical mechanism that leads to compound hot and dry events are complex, and they involve land and atmospheric interactions. So it is very essential for this topic because it will give us future projections on how these compound hot and dry events affect Europe, especially that in the Conference of Parties in Paris, there was an agreement on how to stabilize global warming to below 2 degrees. Let's look at the method being employed by the authors of this article. First of all, previous studies similar to this topic employed global climate models. But in this our particular study, we will be making use of regional climate models. The past observed heat waves in Europe from 1950 to 2022 is going to be observed, and then we analyze it. That will help us to now be able to forecast and predict how these events are going to happen in the future. First of all, we need to be able to look at this term known as heat wave magnitude index, which considers both the heat wave intensity and duration. It is the magnitude of the heat wave that occurs within this period 1981 to 2010, and it is given by the formula as seen there. MD equals to TD minus T30 Y25P all over T30 Y75P minus T30 Y25P. Standardized precipitation index will serve as an indicator for drought. For instance, SPI3 for the months of June, July, August for our study. Now, heat wave index daily greater than 10 is going to be considered as a moderate heat wave. Why, when it is greater than 50, we consider it as a severe and extreme heat wave. Then for the drought, when we have SPI3, like we said, SPI3 standing for the months where mostly droughts occur, and it happens during the summertime, the months of June, July, August. So when we have this SPI3 less than 1 in these summer months, then it is referred to as a moderate drought. Then we have this term referred to as record-breaking compound hot and dry events. This occurs if these indexes HWMID and SPI is higher than 50, that is for the heat wave, and then it is lower than the minimum, and the minimum value is -1. Now we go to the results of this our study. Now the past compound hot and dry events that happened in Europe from 1950 to 2022 show that summer in Europe have been progressively hotter and drier. We've had negative trends in the value of SPI, which stands for precipitation index, and it is visible in Scandinavia. And we've also had an increase in the heat wave magnitude index daily, and it has been visible across all parts of Europe. aside British Island and the Nordic countries. However, the distribution of the reoccurrence of these compound hot and dry events differ greatly on sub-regional scale. Most of these events happen in the northern and eastern Europe. When you look at it on the regional scale, we find out that these CHD events happen mostly in the northern and eastern Europe. Now, from here on, we're going to look at how it happens in the future, that is from the year 2071 to 2100, under the different scenarios, under the low emission scenario, the medium, and the high. Under the low emission scenario, most of Europe will witness up to 6 CHD events in this 30-year period. Aside countries from Spain, Italy, Turkey, they may witness up to 9. That is quite a number. Under the medium emission scenario, the Mediterranean countries will witness up to 15 CHD events. Other parts of Europe will experience between 6 and 12. And under the high emission scenario of this compound hot and dry events, the Mediterranean countries will experience up to 24 events, while the other parts of the country of the continent Europe will experience up to 6 to 21. We go further to see that we want to go further to look at the fractions of the European countries. We've looked at Europe as a continent. Now I want to look at, say, a fraction of a particular region in the continent. For instance, 50% of the land in Iberian Peninsula will witness about 4 to 8 CHD events. From our graph there, if you look at the graph closely, if you trace 50% on the x-axis and check the corresponding value on the y-axis, we find out that Iberian Peninsula will witness about 4 to 8 events under low emission, about 8 to 15 under medium, and about 17 to 24 under high emission. France and other countries will experience similar high values compared to other regions in the continent. Now, under medium emission scenario, we see that in between this year 2071 and 2100, we will have 2 record breaking. We've just been looking at CHD events, and recall we said record breaking implies that when these values are far more than what has been observed from 1950 coming down to 2022. So from the analysis, we see that 2 countries in Southern Europe will experience record-breaking CHD events. Under high emission, places like Portugal and Spain will face up to 5. Then in terms of land fraction, 5% of Iberian Peninsula will experience about 1 to 2 under low emission, 2 to 3 under medium, and 8 to 11 under high emission scenario, as compared to 0.95 to about 0.98 in the past historical period. Then from the graph, we see that the Southern Europe and Mediterranean countries will be impacted by record-breaking droughts. Then separately, there will be an increase in the occurrence of record-breaking heat wave between 2071 and 2100. And then we also see that on the contrary, there will also be a limited increase in record-breaking droughts between 2071 and 2100. In conclusion, it is worth noting that this study does not investigate physical mechanisms or change in the mechanisms that leads to past and future heat wave droughts and ultimately CHD events. These mechanisms are mainly due to thermodynamic factors and land-air circulation interactions. We didn't really look at that in this project. Even though there is the goal to reduce global warming, there is still a likely increase in the occurrence of CHD events in most of Europe. And then finally, that we see that one of the final implications of this our study or the results is that there is now going to be an anticipated increase in CHD events, which would necessitate the development of robust adaptation strategies to mitigate their impacts. This will be crucial for regions, especially in the Iberian Peninsula and Mediterranean, where the frequency and intensity of these events are to increase greatly. Thank you, and God bless you.